Welcome everyone to my top 10 most iconic commander cards and history. I'm sure a lot of these cards won't need any introduction, but I thought I would go deeper in the card's history and explain how these cards came to become some of the most recognizable cards in the history of Magic, spicy Mexican food, and in Commander.
Nice.
I could have easily talked about 20 cards today, but I wanted to keep things short and sweet. You may or may not agree with all these choices, and yeah, I might have forgotten a couple of your favorite dishes, but I simply decided on cards that bring me some sort of nostalgia, and cards that have seen its fair share of play in Commander. Note that these are not in any specific order, so don't freak the f*** out. Lay back, grab a taco, and enjoy. Here's Forest Folk. You don't know who Forest Folk is? Forest Folk is the invitational card submitted by winner Jens Thorin, Solemn Simulacrum. With its original art designed by Thorin for winning the 2002 Invitational Tournament, the sad robot bears its designer's likeness as a prize. Talk about a sweet prize! Because Wizards took the blue and green mana out of the eventual Solemn Simulacrum, the card was allowed to make contribution in a number of different decks, helping decks without green ramp without the use of mana rocks. In fact, Solemn Simulacrum has been a defining component of every block constructed, standard, and even extended formats the entire time it's been legal, playing alongside Memnarch, Kakusho, and even Darksteel Colossus.
Yeah, boy.
Back in 2011, in the Caw-Blade and Tempered Steel era, Solemn was still able to find a home in red-green Valakut decks, and was also an important piece in Birthing Pod decks. And with the coming of Innistrad, it saw play side by side with Titans in Kessig Wolfrun, before ultimately rotating out of Standard in 2012. But the damage was done. Solemn was reprinted in the 2011 Devour for Power Precon deck, and the rest is history. Here's a common phrase we used to hear a lot back in the day. I cast Lightning Greaves. Your commander is already hexproof. Why are you using this? I don't know. It's Lightning Greaves. Anyways, your turn. Okay, I cast Oblivion Ring on your Lightning Greaves. Why did you do that? My commander has hexproof. Because it's Lightning Greaves. That's how good the card is, or how good it was. There was a time where everyone's new deck would always start with a Soul Ring and a Lightning Greaves, back when Kalia and Voltron decks were heavily played. In a format filled with generals and big fatties, this card was an auto-include in almost every deck. But with far less spot removal being played than before, our generals tend to stick around a bit more than they used to. And even though the card is now a meta-heavy card, there's a time where every deck had one of these. It was reprinted in the 2019 Precon Primal Genesis, the only deck of that year to include it, versus being in all first Precons from 2011. Yes, the format has changed a lot since. But since Lightning Greaves has seen no other play besides Commander, it's a card easily relatable to the format we all love. It's not only a staple to Commander, but a staple of how it all started. Rhystic Study, a card that can stick around, draw cards, and be annoying as fuck all the time? By far the best Rhystic card in the cycle from that time. The reason being is that the other Rhystic cards make it that any player may pay the tax to neglect the effect. I'm sure Rhystic Study wouldn't be the card it is today if any player could pay the tax, at any time. In a standard meta filled with Tinker and Replenish combos, Rhystic Study was way too slow to ever see play in its prime time. So it became a Commander only card, and we're fine with that. We're pretty greedy with our salsa. Are you going to pay one? Has become such a recognizable sentence. It defines by itself which format we're talking about. Yes, Rhystic Study has left its mark, and no, I won't pay one. Draw your stupid card. Vampiric Tutor. This amazing instant is a mainstay of many vintage archetypes. The disadvantage of putting the card on top of your library is heavily outweighed by finding Ancestral Recall or a combo piece.
That's pretty good.
Back when Metalworker was banned, I argued that the banning was inconsistent because it was worse than a card still legal at the time, Rofellos. I'm not sure if I would prefer a format without these powerful tutors, but I don't think they're worth banning. The logic behind a card being banned or not is to simply ask yourself if the card is consistent or inconsistent with the current ban list. However, there are no single target tutors on the ban list right now, so there's nothing inconsistent about the legality of Vampiric Tutor. To ban them would require a change in philosophy in the ban list, and right now I'm fine with how it is. As time flies, we hear less and less about banning tutors, and nearing the 10-year anniversary of Commander, safe to say, Vampiric Tutor is here to stay. There were a lot of biblical references in Old Magic, and Swords to Plowshare might be the most recognizable. From the Old Testament, Isaiah 2, they shall beat their swords into plowshare and their spears unto pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Here are a couple of more cards that refer to the Bible. Ashes to Ashes, Dust to Dust, Revelation, Preacher, Wrath of God, Armageddon, and Part Water. Part Water, look at this card. Clearly not influenced by the Star Wars universe. By the way, did you know there was a statue named Swords to Plowshare bearing its name in New York City? Pretty neat, right? Alpha had the card Demonic Tutor, which Locke blacked in as the primary color to tutor for any card type. Philosophically, blue is the better color to have this ability, and let me explain why. Tutoring is primary black, but the other colors can be better at searching for a specific card type. White for enchantments, planeswalkers, and equipments, blue for instant, sorceries, and artifacts, green for creatures and lands, red for nothing, cause red sucks. Demonic Tutor is a staple card of the color black, but I always thought that was a bit odd. Demonic Tutor represents a search for knowledge, and that's a defining trait of both black and blue. But the fact that the card offers an unconditional search with no penalty or payment, apart from mana cost, is out of the color black and better suited to blue in my mind. Black almost always requires a secondary payment, usually the payment of life, in exchange for drawing cards. This trait is demonstrated on cards such as Sign in Blood, Phyrexian Arena, and Bloodgift Demon, which make a Demonic Tutor seem odd in comparison. In my mind, Vampiric Tutor far better embodies the philosophy of black by paying life. But Demonic Tutor is black, you make a deal with the devil, you get exactly what you ask for. Even if the deal is just paying its mana cost, I guess. In a duel, Sol Ring is so backbreaking that dropping it on turn 1 is often game over. As a result, it's banned here. Banned upon release in 1v1, also banned in Legacy and restricted in Vintage. Commander's poster boy, Sol Ring. My goal here won't be to convince you that Sol Ring is an unfair card. Just, at the very least, open your mind about it. In the words of Mark Rosewater, the head designer of Magic since 2003, Sol Ring is beyond broken. In fact, it's considered by many, including pros, cube enthusiasts, and so on, to be the best card ever printed. And even those who dispute that must acknowledge that it's near the top of the food chain. So let's start at the top. How can we be so sure that Sol Ring is unbalanced? A general rule of thumb is that a fair land compared to an artifact that costs 2 should be about the same power level. Sol Ring costs 1, so it should be less than a land, but it's rare to see a land that can tap for 2 mana, even with a drawback, and Sol Ring has none. It provides a tempo advantage far beyond what's acceptable by modern standards. In terms of power level, it's on par with the Moxes, which are banned, and typically acknowledged to be better than the Moxes in Commander, since being printed in its original Commander precons as a card that's affordable and fairly easy to get for everyone. It seems we often forget the power this card can provide. So what's the discussion nowadays about this card? Well, the same as when it was revealed some time ago. Whichever Commander deck you buy, there will be a Sol Ring in it. The problem with I don't like this card was a mistake. It should not have been printed in this set or any other set. This card sets a dangerous precedent. You would never guess the card that I'm talking about here. Command Tower. The first card to ever be EDH specific, and it's amazing at what it does. A EDH Quint land that doesn't break any other format. But did you know a lot of people complained about Commander specific cards in the beginning? A card like Command Tower tips the balance towards multicolored decks and limits the effectiveness of the color pie. Reading this nowadays seems completely ridiculous, as we all know the power level of monocolored decks. Obviously awesome for Commander, obviously useless for everything else. Though it may be true, players from other formats were jealous. And let's face it, is there a reason not to have Command Tower in a deck? Well, no. It's a cheap card accessible for everybody. Wizards wanted people to be able to play whatever they like, have no restrictions, and for me, and for a lot of people, that's what Commander is all about. Nowadays, we see a lot of Commander-specific cards and no one cares anymore. Back then, printing a format-specific card just proved that Wizards saw a lot of potential in Commander. And the rest is history. Island, go. Fetch, shock, Thoughtseize. Bolt the bird. Look at any point in Magic's history and you'll see a gameplay pattern defined by common phrases. Over the past several years in Magic, in response, Cyclonic Rift has taken its place among those all-time greats. According to EDH Rec, Cyclonic Rift is in the top 10 most played cards, and it's been a mainstay of the format for 8 years now, and you either love it or hate it, nothing in between. Rarely is there a player that has no opinion on this format-defining spell. The trouble with Cyclonic Rift in Commander, who would be for, against Cyclonic Rift being banned? Should Cyclonic Rift be banned in EDH? The case for banning Cyclonic Rift. Rift proved itself to outclass every other sweeper in the format, and outside of Teferi's protection, the other colors have few ways to truly combat a mass bounce effect like Rift. Heroic Intervention and Boros Charm are two staples that offer protection from destruction-based sweepers, but all fall short of protecting you from a Cyclonic Rift. An overloaded Rift has to be countered, or it's going to produce a near insurmountable tempo loss for the other players. You want to have fun? Write ban Cyclonic Rift on Google and go read the effects this card has had on players over the years. Ban Rift has become as much of a common phrase than the card itself. And our last card, Primeval Titan. Yes, a ban card. Remember him? He used to be in every single green deck, ever. Playing Primeval Titan, fetching Urborg and Cabal Coffers, attaching Lightning Greaves on my Titan, and attacking to fetch Vesuva and Deserted Temple. Ah, I miss those days. Well, not really. Also called PP Titan, this guy was the green version of a Cyclonic Riff, in the way that the first player to put him on the board would have such a huge lead in the game. The goal was to either steal or copy everyone's Primeval Titan, and if you failed to, you would surely fall short of a victory. I would remember playing Bribery and just asking to have Primeval Titan. I didn't even bother looking through the player's deck, and if that's not format defining, then I don't know what is. While we slowly see some of our favorite commanders getting replaced by better ones, I have to say there's something quite refreshing in seeing these staple cards stand the test of time. They represent the format as much as they define it. With the announcement of Commander 2011 Precons as a standalone release, 2010 was a momentous year for the format. It also officially picked up its Commander name. While the EDH abbreviation remains a reminder from the format's earliest days, the name change and product support launched the format into Magic history. And these staples are here to remind us that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Thanks for watching.